An innocent man is serving a life sentence for a murder he didn't commit, only to discover the actual killer lives just 3 doors down. On June 7, 1998, a home invasion in Barberton, Ohio, left the local community in shock. Someone broke into the home of 58-year-old Judith Johnson, violently assaulted her, and then knocked her 6-year-old granddaughter, Brooke, unconscious. Hours later, Brooke woke up bleeding, with vision in only one eye. She stumbled into the living room, found her grandmother unresponsive on the floor, and fled out into the dark street to look for help. The attack left a severe physical and psychological toll on the young girl. In a state of total shock and confusion, she was highly susceptible to suggestion during the most critical window of the investigation. Brooke eventually reached the home of a neighbor, Tanya Brazil. Instead of calling for an ambulance or tending to the child's wounds, Tanya left Brooke waiting on the porch for nearly an hour. During that time, she began repeating a specific name to the girl, insisting that Brooke's own uncle, Clarence Elkins, was the attacker. Minutes after Brooke finally arrived at the hospital, investigators rushed into the intensive care unit. When Brooke told them she didn't actually see the man's face, the police pressed further. Exhausted and terrified, the 6-year-old repeated what her neighbor had told her, that the man in the dark looked like her uncle. Less than an hour later, police raided Clarence's home. At trial, the prosecution presented no DNA, no forensic links, and no physical evidence tying him to the scene. Despite this, the jury convicted Clarence, sentencing him to 2 life terms in a maximum security prison. The authorities secured a conviction and quickly moved on, leaving the actual murderer on the streets. With the innocent suspect locked away, it was left to his family to act as their own private detectives. Clarence's wife, Melinda, knew her husband was home with their children the night of the murder. Losing all faith in the police, she started building a database of local violent offenders, tracking them down, and turning her own kitchen freezer into a makeshift evidence locker. She spent her nights visiting local bars and hangouts, striking up conversations with potential suspects. She collected discarded cigarette butts, some stray hairs, and beer bottles, eventually compiling over 100 DNA samples on her own. By 2005, testing on the 1998 crime scene swabs definitively proved the attacker's DNA did not belong to Clarence, but the judge refused to grant a new trial. Confirming his innocence wasn't enough to overturn the conviction. Melinda realized the legal bar was far higher than anticipated. Under this specific ruling, Clarence would remain in prison until his family could identify and provide the DNA of the actual perpetrator. Going back through local arrest records, Melinda spotted a familiar name. A man named Earl Mann had recently been convicted of violent crimes against children. Mann was the long-term boyfriend of Tanya Brazil, the same neighbor who had pushed Brooke to accuse Clarence. Mann had a history of breaking into homes and assaulting women. He had also been released from the county jail on June 5, 1998, exactly 2 days before Judith Johnson was killed. Out of the 33 prisons operating in Ohio, Earl Mann was transferred directly into the Mansfield Correctional Institution. He was placed in the exact same cell block as Clarence Elkins. Clarence now had a target. Knowing his wife needed a physical sample to test, he spent months quietly observing Mann. During recreation time one afternoon in the yard, Clarence watched Mann put out a cigarette in a makeshift ashtray. As soon as Mann walked away, Clarence moved in. He grabbed the discarded butt, rocked it in tissue paper, and flattened it inside his personal Bible so he could discreetly mail it out to Melinda. The most vital piece of forensic evidence in a 7-year investigation didn't come from a lab. It was stolen from a predator's ashtray by an inmate who had run out of other options. This data visualization shows the results of the final comparison. The DNA extracted from the smuggled cigarette and the 1998 crime scene swabs are identical, identifying Earl Mann as the source of the biological evidence. Faced with undeniable biological proof, the state could no longer ignore the truth. After 7 years in maximum security, Clarence Elkins walked out of prison a free man. Earl Mann was subsequently prosecuted and sentenced to 55 years to life for Judith's murder. Clarence eventually settled a civil rights lawsuit against the local police and the state of Ohio for over $6 million. The settlement forced the authorities to publicly acknowledge their failures. but a payout cannot restore a decade of stolen time and fractured family bonds. The strain of the wrongful conviction took a heavy toll. Clarence struggled to adjust to life on the outside, and while he and Melinda remained close friends and allies, the lingering trauma ultimately led to their divorce. Brooke, now a teenager, carried immense guilt over her coerced testimony, but Clarence made it his priority to ensure she knew he held zero resentment, choosing to support the niece he always saw as a daughter. The exoneration of Clarence Elkins proves that truth is rarely given willingly by the institutions meant to protect it. It must be uncovered, fought for, and reclaimed by ordinary people who refuse to give up. If you want to see more stories of incredible resilience, hit the subscribe button to join us here at The Explainer.